Hey everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it's a very happy Friday morning, October the 13th, to you and yours. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. It's a pre-recorded show today, as you could probably tell. Maybe this mic doesn't always sound like the studio mic, but due to some travel things, of course, I'm headed up to Durham for this football game this weekend, so can't join you in the studio today, but we've still got plenty of great stuff to get to. Our own Gene Williams is going to join us. Drew is going to join us. We're going to do our weekly over-unders. We're going to play Lucky 7. We're going to have a great time doing all that and breaking all that down for you, but as you probably know by now, we've got some injury news that we got to get to, and we'll get to that in just a second. But before we do, thanks so much for waking up with us here at 6 a.m. on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and of course, streaming over your mobile device, whether that be through our own WTSM app or the TuneIn Radio app, or however, maybe even streaming on your browser on ESPNTallahassee.com. We thank you so much for doing that. You know where to get the podcast by now: iTunes, Podcast Republic, WarChantRadio.com, the TuneIn Radio app, YouTube, wherever, however. Thanks so much for doing it. And if you like the show, it always helps when you rate and subscribe, give us a good review. Helps us out, and of course, when you subscribe, it helps you out because it gives you a fresh, brand new episode in your, I guess you could say, player of your choosing every day. That should be the terminology. Yeah, that's right. radio@warchant.com. There's your email address if you want to get in contact with the show, and of course, at Wake Up War Chant, that's your Twitter account as well if you like to keep those comments to 140 characters or less. And as always, you know we can't do this without our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central, Township, all there in the heart of College Town. Of course, now the Soto Bakery, right there in Midtown. Great little place, of course, where Lenny Subs used to be. Lots of good stuff. I'm a little embarrassed that I haven't been able to go to Soto yet, because every time I see one of these pictures of these donuts on Twitter, it looks so stinking good. So we might have to do a wake up from Soto sometime soon. I hope we can. But anyway, I mentioned it at the top of the show. You know the bad news by now. Landon Dickerson is out for the year. There's some other injury news that we'll get to, but of course, the big news here is that Landon Dickerson, for the second straight season, the true sophomore, is going to have his season cut short. He, of course, had his ACL torn last year, midway through the season. As a matter of fact, November is around when that happened. So this is the second straight year that this has happened for a kid who's, let's face it, been a rock-solid part of your offensive line, which has otherwise been somewhat shaky. So the fact that he played through the injury as long as he did is somewhat impressive, but you knew he eventually had to have surgery on that ankle. Jimbo Fisher confirmed that he was going to have that yesterday when we caught up with him after Thursday's practice. Landon is scheduled to have that surgery today, so of course our best well wishes to him. And well, that puts you in a peculiar situation with this offensive line, because let's face it, every time that this offensive line hasn't had its starting five, it's gone from okay to pretty shaky pretty quickly. And of course, there's no bigger testament to that in that Wake Forest game when Derek Kelly goes down, Brock Rubel goes in. Of course, we've seen a couple times this season that Derek Kelly has moved over to guard, and Josh Ball has taken his place at tackle. So maybe that's what happens in this game. Maybe that's what we see. Maybe they do end up moving Ball to guard full-time now that that's going to be his assignment. We're just going to have to see how that shakes out on the day. But, of course, a quick refresher course for those of you who may or may not have remembered Mr. Ball. He was a four-star offensive tackle coming in the class of 2016 from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Like we said, he's seen some playing time, but now he has to be in that big-time starting role. And here's the thing. We've talked about this before. The ups and downs and the highs and the lows of Florida State's offensive line, one thing that you can certainly say they have more than anything is numbers. The numbers are there. It's supposed to be able to adapt to losing depth, to adapt to losing guys. And this is where you find out just how well you've recruited over these last 2 years with as many offensive linemen as you've signed into your classes. So the best of luck to Mr. Ball. He's going to need it, and this team is going to need it. And, of course, that's just another shot to another position that you were really, really shaky at. Of course, I already said there were a couple other injuries as well. Trey Marshall is going to miss a game, and believe it or not, it's not because he was thrown out of the last one for targeting. It's because he has a concussion. So you're not going to be able to see him tomorrow. Of course, Keith Gavin, no real surprise here. A lot of folks kind of knew when he went down in Miami, this was more than likely a game that he wasn't going to play in. So that leg injury, of course, gets hurt against Miami. Trey Marshall, of course, also sustained that concussion against Miami. They're both going to be out for this game. But the one that kind of surprised us on Thursday was hearing a little bit about Jacob Pugh. He sustained a concussion Wednesday in practice, and now he's not going to be ready to roll for that game tomorrow. So you're without linebacker, one of your thinnest positions. Offensive line, which you can say you have the numbers depth, but do you have the quality depth, and are you able to sustain? And you're without a senior safety. Not ideal. I get it. It's Duke. This is a game that you should win. Absolutely, you should win. But how many times have you said that this season? You should beat NC State in a home opener, regardless of the front seven or any of that. You should beat Wake Forest easily and not have to, bat away a Hail Mary with the closing seconds. But a lot of could have, should have, would haves this season, and it just makes this game a lot cloudier. And finally, George Campbell's questionable on the day with a core muscle injury. At least that's what Coach Fisher called it. So expect to see DJ Matthews, Tamarian Terry. Jimbo Fisher's talked about him all week. Those are guys that you need to have step up for this game on Saturday. And I'm really anxious to see it. DJ Matthews, you heard good things about him in fall camp. You've seen him get on field a little bit. Anxious to see him just kind of turn it loose, see what he can do as a little bit of a different wide receiver from what Florida State has in Auden Tate and Nyquan Murray. So I want to see how he steps up. I don't know how much I'm expecting of Tamarian Terry right away, just because you knew he was a raw prospect coming in here out of Turner County. I think we could see something decent out of him, and maybe he evolves a little bit throughout the year. But the fact is, this is a guy who's being asked to step up at a very, very early time in his career. It's an interesting game tomorrow, and it just got a lot more interesting with all these injury announcements. Of course, for all your coverage, stick with warchant.com. We've got you covered, and of course, we have the game day page up on warchant.com. I'll be up there. Ira will be up there giving you your coverage, giving you your videos, giving you your articles. All you need to know as Florida State tries to get their second win on the year. And, heck, it's kind of hard to believe that if they do, it's another one on the road. And 2-0 in true road games and 0-3 and everything else. If Florida State's able to get it done, that's a little crazy to me. But anyway, there was a great baseball game last night. We got to get you caught up on that just a little bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, this is Why You Were Sleeping.
Hello. Good morning. Wake up. Wake up. Wake me up. Good morning. Good morning.
What happened last night?
9-8, that was the final score at Nationals Park last night. The Cubbies end up winning that series 3-2. They end up winning Game 1, Game 3, Game 5, and get this, I could not believe this stat when I heard it. In the last 3 playoffs that they were in, the Washington Nationals are 0-8 in one-run ball games. I found that absolutely astonishing. One might even say mind-blowing when you look at it. Just how talented that team is, just how good that team is. You have a superstar bat in Bryce Harper, of course. You have a great veteran in Daniel Murphy, Steven Strasburg. Well, I mean, as whiny and as kind of, I guess you could say, the issues they've had over the years with him, he ends up pitching you that good game in Game 4. Max Scherzer can't get it done in October. Boy, where have I heard that before? Anyway, it's the Nats that are gone. The Cubbies are going to play the Dodgers in what promises to be a great series. When we come back, it's Gene Williams and Drew Hicken joining me over the Skype line. We're going to make our picks for the week right after this. Stick around. It's Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. You know, for those of you that are maybe not headed up to Wallace Wade Stadium this weekend, you know the place to watch the game already. I tell you every single week, and I tell you because it's true. Our friends at For the Table are the best place to find yourself at a football game, surrounded by plenty of Nole faithful, Madison Social, Central Township, all there in the heart of College Town. 3 different experiences, 1 great Florida State game. Of course, a high nooner, so hydrate with caution, I guess is the way that I would look at that here as we roll into Florida State Duke. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at it this way. It's Florida State, it's Duke, and it's our weekly over-unders with Drew Hicken and Eden Schultz. Fellas, how are you guys?
Doing just fine, thanks.
Doing good.
All right, gentlemen. So, Gene, why don't you go ahead and let us know how we did last week on these things?
Yeah, not quite as bad as last week. Ryan, you and I came in right at 500. How about our boy Drew there, breaking the 500 mark at 5-3 on the over and under? So I think we all are trending, at least staying even or trending up a bit. So hopefully this week will go a little better.
All right, gents. Well, we've got some fresh things. Gene, you set these lines, and we'll start it right with Duke's rushing yards. Of course, Duke's offense has not been great as of the last couple of weeks. Quarterback play hasn't quite been what Duke thought it would be, but rushing yards, 125. They have a quarterback who can run the ball, running back who can run the ball, but they just have not looked very good. So you know what? Give me the under.
Yeah, I'm probably with you there. It's surprisingly, I looked at their numbers. They're averaging over 200 yards a game on the ground. But again, I think they mostly feasted up the first 4 games are against really weak competition, and they ran really well. The last couple weeks against both Virginia and Miami, I think they're around the 130 to 140 mark, so they've definitely dropped off a bit. So FSU, the one consistent thing I will say about that defense is they have been pretty good against the run. So I'm with you there. Ryan, give me the under.
Yeah, I'm going to go under as well. I'm a little worried about this team's mental aspect of this game and how they're going to bounce back after that Miami loss. We talked about Miami and how they've kind of fallen apart after losing to Florida State every year for the past 7 years. We haven't had to deal with that, so we'll see how this team responds. But I'm going to go under as well.
All right, gentlemen, so we're in agreement there. Florida State rushing yards, 150. Is this the Cam Akers coming out party? Is this where he just kind of gets the ball, maybe finally breaks one of the house? And, of course, Jacquez Patrick, a little banged and bruised. So is this the Cam Akers show? 150 yards. You know what? I think it is. I'm going to play over.
Well, Drew, it's surprising. Duke's actually in the top 10 in rush defense. They held, Miami pretty much in check. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. The one thing, you look at Florida State's offense, that rushing attack has been trending up every single week. Start out with 40 against Alabama. It's improved, and they had over 200 last week against a very good Miami defense. It's just because of the fact that I think Cam Akers is learning to run a little bit more north and south. The fact that they, all the blame you want to put on the line, they seem to be blocking it a little bit better for the run. And I think they're going to have to rely on the run. So, yeah, I'm with you there. I'm going to go over as well.
Yeah, I would kind of argue that Cam Akers' coming out party might have been a little bit against Miami last week, especially when he took that guy out down the sideline. I've watched that clip about 500 times. Awesome. But I'm going to go over here too. I really like the way that this, like you said, this running attack for Florida State is trending. I'm going to be optimistic here and go over.
All right, gents, we move on to the passing game. James Blackman, 200 yards. You know what? I'm more confident in this going over if the game's close, because that appears to be when James Blackman wakes up in that second half and throws the football. But you know what? I do think this is a somewhat comfortable win for Florida State. I think James Blackman gets involved just a little bit. I know the wide receivers are hurt and banged and bruised, but I think he's going to get a couple chunk plays that end up being the difference here. I play over.
You know what I should do is set the over-under first half, second half passing yards, because it would be a lot more in the second half than the first half. He definitely does not come out of the gates very strong. Man, I don't know. Those receivers are pretty banged up. I don't know. I think this could be a team a little out of focus after that Miami game. I'm probably wrong on this, but I just have a weird feeling. I'm going to go under on this.
Yeah, I'm going to go over too. Just because, I just like the strides that he's making. I know he hasn't started fast, but, maybe Jimbo can scheme some things up to get him going a little quicker in this football game. At least that's my hope. I'm going to go slightly over.
All right, gents, we move to the defensive side of the football, and, Derwin James has not really done great against our over-unders this year. He's at 5 tackles this week. I hate to call a push, but that sounds exactly right to me, so I'm calling a push.
Yeah, this is one of those, like Florida State, Derwin James has not covered all season. He's been under our total. I think we started out at something ridiculous like 12, and it's dropped every week. It was 6 last week, and he ended up with 5. So I'm like, look, we're gonna sell it right at 5. I think he breaks it finally. I think he goes over that 5. It's statistically, he's got to be out there. He's a guy roaming around. He's got to be making more tackles. So I'm going to go a little bit over 5.
Yeah, for the 5th game in a row, I'm going to go over again. Sooner or later, this is going to pay off for me, especially if we keep lowering the number. So yeah, I'm going to go over 2.
Drew, you're a gambling man that may not never learn on this one, my friend. That's all I'm saying on that one, pal. All right, Duke 3rd and long conversions. For the sake of this, we're going to say 3rd and long is 7 yards or more. Gene, you've set the line at 3. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, because that was such a big deal against Miami, I thought let's throw that in the over and under situation there. You know, I can't go under the way that all season long the defense has just been pathetic. You almost feel more comfortable to 3rd and 3 and a 3rd and 4 than you do in a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. I don't know what it is about this defense, why they struggled. I don't know if Duke quite has the horses to convert some of those. And it's against the odds. I'm actually going to go with a push. I like that number where it is right there. I think 3 is going to be the number.
Drew, what say you, my friend?
Yeah, this one feels pretty easy to me. I'm going to go over. This defense, like you said, has struggled on 3rd and long for whatever reason this season. And really, you know, you can knock out 2 out of 3 of those on one drive. Wouldn't shock me at all. So I'm going to go with the over on that one.
I tend to agree with you fellas, but at the same time, Duke's offense has just been so dang bad lately. I don't know. Maybe it's to be different. Maybe it's a gut feeling, but I'm just going to play under here. Logan Tyler punting average, 42.5. I never thought I'd see the day. And Florida State fans, you're welcome again. Under.
Yeah, you're just like Drew is consistent picking the over on Derwin and being wrong every week. You're the same on Logan Tyler. That is a very good sign.
Gene, I am doing this as a public service to the fans of Florida State University athletics.
And you know, Ryan, I was gonna go under on this. So I just had a feeling because he's had a couple pretty good games that he would go back. But the mere fact that you picked the under, I think that's the most telling stat to me. I'm gonna go over.
I'm gonna go under too. I agree, just because I just feel like he's due. He's kind of surprised me the last couple of weeks. I'm not really ready to go ahead and say that I got full confidence in him. It's just so easy for him to go out there and shank one kick and have a 39, 40-yard average. So I'm gonna go under.
Don't forget sacks there, Ryan.
All right, and finally, defensive sacks before we get to the overall total. It's set at 3. It's interesting because this is one of those games where, you know, the way that the quarterback runs the ball, I could see him getting taken down in the backfield before it's actually scheduled as a run. So, you know what? Yeah, give me over.
Yeah, this is last week we had this number at 3, and FSU ended up with 2. They came just short of it. Duke is giving up exactly an average of 3 sacks per game. I'm either tempted to do a push or an over here. You got to wonder if FSU actually got ahead and Duke had to pass a little bit more because they do like to go that zone read and they like to run a lot. Again, against the odds, I'm just going to go push. I like that number 3.
Yeah, same here. I'm going to go push as well. Florida State really just hasn't proved that they've had a consistent pass rush all year, something that's a little concerning. I thought that they would do a little bit better against Miami, and they did force Rozier out of the pocket quite a bit. But again, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the push.
All right, and finally, boys, Daniel Jones, David Cutcliffe, and that Duke crew versus Florida State. 2 offenses that have, I mean, Duke hasn't looked great, and Florida State's been pretty Jekyll and Hyde. Sometimes they look terrible, sometimes they look wonderful. 46.5. That's a really tough number to me, but I'll tell you what, I think Florida State maybe gets a little cushion at the end of this. I'm going to play the over.
Really? I don't know on this one. I mean, this is a team that scored 6 against Miami. I mean, I think the defenses are comparable. I think Duke just doesn't match up well with athletic teams. But at the same point, I don't see Florida State putting together 2 solid halves of offense, which I would think they would need to do to overcome what the little bit Duke's going to do in offense. So I actually really like the under on this one, so I'm going under.
Yeah, I'm going to go under as well. Until I see Florida State really put up a consistent offensive performance, it's going to be pretty easy for me to pick the unders on points almost near 50 points, especially when you're playing a lesser Duke team, like you said, where defensively you should be able to feast a little bit against that team. So, yeah, I'm going to go under.
All right, folks, so we differed on enough to make this a pretty interesting week, folks. So, well, we'll just have to find out that box score. I know I'm going to be biting my nails watching it as it comes in on Stat Broadcast. So, anyway, there's more games going on than ours. As a matter of fact, ours is just kind of an appetizer. That's why it's a noon kickoff, ladies and gents. There's plenty of good games this weekend and some not-so-great ones, and we're going to pick them all in a segment that, we like to call Lucky 7.
Now you have to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky?
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. I need to feel you, Jerry. Show me the money. Jerry, you better yell. Show me the money.
So here it is, the 7 best games of the week. We pick them against the spread. Last week it was pretty even. Gene and Drew, 3-4 on the week. Yours truly, 4-3, picking slightly better than the other two. Sparty helped me out, gentlemen. How about that?
Yep.
I didn't think they'd win, but I knew they'd keep that dadgum game close. But yeah, I'm still in shock that they actually went out and won the stinking thing. But overall, we start our picks with a game that's going on tonight at the Carrier Dome up in upstate New York. It's the Syracuse Orange hosting Clemson. And by the way, Vegas is giving Syracuse 22.5. How you see it, gents?
Boy, it's a big number. Clemson did not cover last week against Wake, but I kind of thought that might happen after that emotional game. You know what? Carrier Dome's a little odd. Some teams struggle up there. Obviously, Clemson's going to win this game, but that number's kind of big for me, so give me the Qs.
Yeah, I also want to can we go ahead and confirm or deny, is Kelly Bryant playing in this football game? I know he rolled up his ankle a little bit last week.
He's supposed to. Last I heard, Sweeney came out yesterday and I think said, that he practiced some and he should be able to go.
Okay. Just because I picked Wake to cover last week and I feel like there's just no way Clemson comes out and looks kind of sloppy 2 weeks in a row. But it's a Friday night game, like you said, in the Carrier Dome. It's a little weird. 22.5 is a lot of points. I feel like they're going to win by like 21, but I'm gonna go Clemson as the safe bet here, I guess.
Yeah, you go ahead and do that, buddy. That 22.5, that weird point and a hook is strange to me. And plus, Gene's right. It's the Carrier Dome, and weird things happen up there. I'll take Cuse. I'll probably regret it, but that's how I see it shaking out. Another good game tonight out on the West Coast. Washington State's going to Cal. Washington State is giving 14.5 to the Bears. Listen, I really like Mike Leach's squad. They proved me and impressed me a lot when they were able to upset USC. But you know what? I don't think Cal's all that bad. Washington State's going to win this game. Cal's going to cover that 14.5.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. And I think the first time I ever got a Pac-12 game right against the spread was last week with Wazoo. So I appreciate them coming through for me. And in the War Chant report, which is up, you can watch it up where Jeff Cameron, myself, and Ira give our picks. I picked Wazoo in this, but at the time the line was 13.5. Now it's gone up to 14.5. So you got, say the reverse hook, you got the hook to do it. I don't like that. It's a little too many points. I'm with you. I think Cal's decent. It's at Cal. I can see State having a little bit of a letdown. So, yeah, I think obviously Wazoo's going to win this, but that's too many points. They're going to be Cal.
Yeah, I agree for all the same reasons. I'm going to take Cal in this one as well.
All right, then, gentlemen. I could not believe this spread when I saw it. Just could not absolutely believe that this is where we've reached. This is where we've stooped to in Lincoln, Nebraska, that the Huskers are 24-point dogs on their own field to the Ohio State Buckeyes. There's got to be some renegade booster that's already on the phone with Scott Frost, right? Like they know that this whole Mike Riley thing isn't where. As a matter of fact, Mike Riley, your old job is open. Just take Oregon State, go back out there, do what you got to do. But, man, this ain't working. And the fact that the Huskers are 24-point dogs, you know what? I'm taking Nebraska to cover, but at the same time, that's unacceptable for Nebraska. I don't care what modern recruiting says Nebraska should or shouldn't be. You should never be that big of a dog in Lincoln.
Now at home, that's what really blows you away in this thing. At home to be more than a 3-touchdown underdog. I mean, it's like Miami or, imagine that, or Clemson coming into Tallahassee and being a 24-point favorite. I mean, that's kind of how Nebraska fans probably look at it. It's crazy to me. I just don't like a home dog being that big of an underdog. Plus, I can't stand Urban Meyer. So for those reasons, Nebraska.
Yeah, I think this line is really close. I do expect Ohio State to win rather handily, but again, 24 is a lot against the Nebraska team who has showed a little bit of fight in them in the past weeks. So, again, at home, and again, I agree with Gene. I hate Urban Meyer, so I'm going to go ahead and pick Nebraska.
Now, guys, I get that I've said a lot here lately that if somebody doesn't win a game, they should shut the program down. And Florida should shut the program down after losing to that LSU team. But speaking of the Florida Gators, Texas A&M, the fighting Aggies of College Station, if you lose to Florida while they're wearing those alligator uniforms, shut the program down. Here's the thing. Florida's still favored by 3 in this game. That's about what Vegas still thinks of the Gators, and I think it takes a couple weeks for this to adjust. But I think the luck finally runs out. Everybody knows I'm not a big Texas A&M guy, but I think they're just a better team than Florida. They hung in there with Alabama, and that becomes the question. Do they have a hangover after putting up such a tough fight against the Tide, and now you're going on the road to Gainesville, one of the longest trips that you can take in the SEC from Texas over to North Florida? So you know what? I think the Aggies win this game outright, which obviously means I think they cover that 3. But I don't feel great about it because I don't trust Kevin Sumlin, and it would also be just like Florida to go straight back into backing into winning these games.
If we get on a side in those, and I can't believe those alligator jerseys and uniforms they're wearing for this game, and I know you do have a couple reasons. Hopefully you sell some of those jerseys, and obviously recruits usually like these alternate jerseys.
But
and I'm an older dude compared to you young
Gene?
guys, but answer me this. I mean, do you really think a younger person, a recruit, is going to think that's a cool jersey to wear? It looks ridiculous to me.
God, I hope not. I mean, those things are yikes.
The recruits are going to like them. God
Really?
knows why. I think they are. Yeah, I think I've seen some positive reactions from some recruits on Twitter. I think they're hideous. Maybe it's just the dudes who are committed and are trying to show some support. But I really don't like them either.
I mean, yeah, I get some of the times they do the alternative ones, and there's some stuff on it. I go, well, it's kind of against tradition, but I can see how younger people like that one. It just looks hideous to me. Anyway, jerseys alone, I can't take the Gators in this, and I think A&M really. I mean, they hung in there with Alabama, and that doesn't happen very often these days. I mean, I got to give them some credit there. Florida, I think now may start reeling. I think they kind of went to the well too often. They were lucky, honestly. I don't know if they should have a win right now. So yeah, I think A&M rolls them in Gainesville.
Yeah, I'm going to take A&M as well, just because I think that the way Florida's defense has kind of looked over the past couple weeks, and they've looked susceptible to giving up some points, and the way A&M's offense has looked at times, I feel pretty confident in picking A&M in this game.
Gents, we move on to another rival for Florida State. Georgia Tech is going to Miami. This game was originally supposed to be played last night, but of course, because we had to move Florida State-Miami, they moved this around, moved this game to Saturday. The Canes are giving 5.5 to the Yellow Jackets. This is an interesting game. How does Miami respond to that win? And of course, well, Georgia Tech had a bye week before this game coming into it. I think Miami covers. If this line was maybe 6.5 or something like that, I might rethink it. But since the line's moved to 5.5, I'm going to take the Canes.
Yeah, it's interesting. That line was actually 7 a couple days ago, so some money obviously going on the Jackets here. And I think people are probably looking traditionally what happens after Miami has that emotional game against Miami. I mean, they traditionally fall apart. I'm still not convinced Miami's that good. I think they pulled it out, and credit to them, but they could have just as easily blown that game against Florida State. I don't know. I think Georgia Tech's a tough matchup. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this thing. And this will be the game to me whether Miami is really for real. Are they really back, or do they just catch FSU at a really down time? To me, I'm not buying that they're back. So go ahead and give me the Jackets straight up.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jackets too. This game, it's the second you read it and you see that line, it's really intriguing just because you know how Georgia Tech's offense is, and you know Miami's probably already a little banged up from that matchup against us last week. I think they're probably drinking a little bit too much of their own Kool-Aid. I'm gonna go ahead and take Georgia Tech too.
All right, gents. So we have a couple on the Jackets, and finally, Red River rivalry time. 7.5 points. That's what Oklahoma is giving to the Texas Longhorns. That's a really tricky hook there. Of course, that game always played on a neutral site in the Cotton Bowl, and Oklahoma, Iowa State, I know this is what you guys said on the War Chant report, but it bears repeating. The worst thing that ever could have happened to Tom Herman and crew. Oklahoma gets upset by Iowa State, maybe looking ahead to Texas a little bit, and now they might just take out those frustrations on a not-so-great Horns team. So, as much as I wish Texas would do it, fingers crossed they can do it, I think Oklahoma blows Texas out. This is going to be a game that Baker Mayfield's going to look great in that system, and he's going to be the Heisman favorite again because, of course, he's going to be. So, anyway, Oklahoma covers, Oklahoma wins. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends. It's going to be a bad one and a bloody one at the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, this is one I don't care about that hook. Get rid of that thing, and I'm with you 100%, Ryan. This is one of those games I look at if I did this as a hobby and threw some money on things, which I don't, but if I did, this is the one that jumps out to me. I put a lot on Oklahoma in this game. I just coming off that upset loss. Texas is still trying to find their way. Yeah, this is, I think Oklahoma wins going away.
Yeah, I think honestly, if Oklahoma hadn't lost that game to Iowa State last week, I would probably pick Texas just because recently you've seen some really bad Texas teams beat Oklahoma in this game. But for the exact reason that you all mentioned, there's just no way Oklahoma comes out here and lays an egg 2 weeks in a row. I'm going to take Oklahoma.
Now, I'm with you there, Drew, because if Oklahoma would have won last week and barely escaped, I think Texas is a really sexy bet right now. But because they lost, let's face it, they're going to be a punching bag on Saturday. I mean, heck, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am there. Finally, we get to our game. It's Florida State and Duke at Wallace Wade Stadium. High noon, the Noles, who were barely favored when this thing opened up. That line, because the public loves to bet on them, some Seminoles, has worked all the way up to a solid touchdown. 7 points is what the Noles are getting against the Duke Blue Devils. And, well, I think they cover. I understand the people who don't think they do. I know our own Ira Schafel picked against the Noles in the War Chant report, but, I mean, this just seems like a game with Duke reeling the way they are. If Florida State was ever going to get right, especially on a road game, this just kind of seems to be the one. Florida State's teams traditionally, even against good Duke teams, match up well physically. I think this is a matchup that they can exploit. Running game, Cam Akers maybe getting a little show. If he can knock out those home runs like we talked about in Lucky 7, they can cover this 7, and I think they do. Give me the Noles.
This should be, all things being equal, this should be a really easy cover for Florida State. The only thing you really look at, you compare, Miami, Florida State are obviously pretty evenly matched athletically everywhere else, and that game went down to the wire. Miami blew out Duke at Duke, so you would think there'd be a similar result, but you got to wonder, does Florida State, are they going to be totally focused in this game after losing effectively their season? All their season goals are pretty much done after losing to Miami, so I'm just worried about the mental state of this team going up to a sleepy nooner at Wallace Wade. So I think they're going to struggle a little bit. I don't think it's going to be like Wake where the fans aren't going to be real happy with the product on the field, but I think FSU gets out with a win, and they probably barely cover. Maybe they win this thing by about 10 points, but it's not enough points for FSU Duke, so I'm with FSU.
Yeah, I'm going to take FSU here again, too, just because, I get it. You've never lost to the team in program history. You opened as a 1-point favorite. I am worried about this team mentally because I felt like they really invested a lot into that Miami game, thinking that's the time where they turn their season around. I think there was a lot of belief in that locker room. They were going to win that football game. For it to end the way that it did, I'm sure they had a tough week of practice trying to get back into it. But do you really want to be the team that let Miami break the streak against you and lose to Duke for the first time in school history? I don't think so. So hopefully they come to play. I'm going to take Florida State to cover.
And Drew, I think you hit on something absolutely perfect there, my friend. It's the idea that, listen, you can be the team that had to break that streak to Miami. Somebody eventually had to be. Miami was eventually going to beat Florida State. But if you're the team that snaps almost 20 straight wins to Duke, listen, you're playing for pride against Miami. And this is no shot on Duke because obviously David Cutcliffe's turned them into a respectable program. But that was for pride. This is for dignity, fellas.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. This would go down on one of the most infamous teams of all time, losing the streak to Miami, being top 3 and maybe not being bowl eligible, losing the streak to Duke. I mean, you want to talk about all the lost decades team, and that's one thing. And there were some really disappointing and mediocre seasons during that run. But, I mean, there's been nothing like this. And it would be, if you lose to Duke, it would be unprecedented because I think then you're really thinking at that point, you got Louisville next. You're sitting potentially at 1-5, and you're probably not going to a bowl at that point.
Gene, you were covering the team at this point. If they lose on Saturday, if they lose this game tomorrow, some way, somehow, does the anger boil over to 2009 levels of frustration?
Oh yeah, I think it absolutely has to. There was a little different in 2009 because you kind of had year after year just kept building a little bit more and more, and just kind of finally, just like the top blew off, boiled over. But I just think the level of disappointment when you're preseason number 3, you're supposed to win the ACC, and everything just blows up in your face like this. I ran the story last week about early in the week about how disappointing this season has been compared to college football history. I mean, Florida State's in some very small company right now in terms of really massively underachieving on preseason goals, and you just can't keep doing that. I don't know how ugly it's going to get. But the thing is, if they do lose this game, it's because of one thing. It's because this team has given up, and that is an indictment on the coaching staff as much as anything.
Drew, I'll leave the final question to you, my friend. Would this be the worst loss of the Jimbo Fisher era?
It would definitely be up there. I would say probably would be the worst loss of the Jimbo Fisher era. Off the bat, you think of that home loss to Virginia. You think of that 2012 game in NC State when you were number 3 in the nation, and you thought maybe Florida State was finally back. But no, I think losing to Duke for the first time in program history. That would be a very bad loss.
I think the Georgia Tech loss up there has to go into it because that was a 3-8 team. The Duke is better than that Georgia Tech team.
That's true.
That's true, but that team also didn't have nearly the expectations that this squad had. And, of course, the athletes, and let's face it, 2015, for all intents and purposes, was a rebuild. And I get it. You've been dealt a bad hand in 2017. You've had a lot of injuries. Your receiver core is banged up. Your quarterback isn't healthy, but my word, if you lost this one, you're right, Gene. It's an indictment on the coaching staff, and it really worries you because if you're not going to muster up the strength to beat Duke, I don't think you're going to muster up the strength to beat anybody not named Delaware State on the rest of that schedule.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about that. You're saying so you play it, well, at that point, what do they do? Make up Louisiana Monroe with a 1-11, 1-10, 1-11? Oh yeah, it'd be a 1-10 record.
That would be pathetic.
That'd be quite the turnout for that game, wouldn't it? So if you bring back Louisiana Monroe, then you're looking at a 2-10 season. That's just, I can't even wrap my head around how awful that would be.
Anyway, gentlemen, it's a good thing we all picked FSU to cover then. So we're not going to have to worry about this. But regardless, it's a pretty interesting slate of games. Even if it's not a lot of juggernaut top 25s going at each other, it is certainly a lot of fascinating ones, especially tonight. Washington State Cal, that one kind of intrigues me because Washington State's kind of in that situation that they were just a couple weeks ago. Anyway, gentlemen, I know we got to run. Thank you both for joining today.
Thanks for having us, Ryan. Have a good weekend.
All right, we're putting a bow on this thing right after this, ladies and gents. It's Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Florida Florida State just landed a 5-star commitment.
I don't see that anywhere online. How did you get that news so fast?
I'm on the new warchant.com app. I get news updates and scores pushed to my phone instantly.
How much does it cost?
It's free. Just go to iTunes or the Google Play Store, type in Warchant, and install it on your phone. That's it.
A free app that keeps me constantly up to date on Florida State sports and recruiting? Wow, that makes it incredibly easy to follow my Seminoles and never miss out.
With the app, you'll also get quick access to all the stories and features on Warchant, including the ever-popular message boards that feature thousands of fans talking about the Noles.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
It's put a bow on a time here on Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio. Just a few more minutes before we hand it on over to Mike and call it a week. But before we do that, well, first of all, my thanks to Gene Williams and my thanks to Drew for both joining us today and, of course, doing our picks, playing Lucky 7, doing what we always do. But a couple things before I let you run. First of all, if you're in Tallahassee, jam with Coach Hammis tonight. Go to Tully Gym. That thing is a lot of fun. It always is. Watching dunks, 3 points, and going back to Tully Gym, going back to the roots of Florida State basketball. And plus, those shirts are really, really cool. So make sure you're out there and support a program that looks like it's going to have, I'm not going to tell you a year quite like it had last year, but I think what could be a fun season. And you owe it to yourself to watch MJ Walker as much as you can because he's only going to be around for a year, folks. So soak that in, have some fun. Make sure you're out there tonight. And by the way, quick little viewing guide for Saturday. How about that? My picks for outside of noon, of course, when everybody's watching the Noles, the games you should be watching for the rest of the day. The 3:30 game, well, I'll be honest, I had a tough time picking it because the Red River rivalry is the Red River rivalry. However, like you heard, I don't really think many of us give much of a shot to Texas in this one. Now, if you find out it's close, maybe flip it over, but I think the pick here has to be Georgia Tech and Miami. This is it. How good is Miami? How will they respond to finally having success in that series? We've seen what they do against Florida State when they don't have success. So it's time to find out. Paul Johnson, big test, especially with a bye week for the Yellow Jackets. It was supposed to be a bye week for both of them. But Paul Johnson off a bye week. If Georgia Tech doesn't turn the ball over, I think they've got a really good shot in this game because they can move the ball. This is as good as a Georgia Tech option outside of, save a couple exceptions that they've had for quite some time. And night game, well, it's not the greatest of pickings in the world, but if I'm you, I'm tuning over to ABC and I'm watching Utah and USC. Utah was ranked until they lost last week, and they're good, folks. Kyle Whittingham does what he does best, and that's continually turn out quality teams that play good defense. And, well, with USC kind of waffling back and forth, this is a big prove-it game for the Trojans. So, yeah, if a little bit of West Coast football tickles your fancy, I would say that's the game to watch at night, unless you really just want to watch those Florida uniforms, which, oh, God. Who approved that? Listen, you can make fun of Florida all you want. You can say they're rivals all you want. You can do whatever. Somebody makes those decisions over there. And that's an athletic program that, makes pretty good decisions. They win a good bit. Who signed off on that? Because they should be fired. That's all I'm saying. My thanks to Gene. My thanks to Drew. My thanks to you guys for listening. We're going to be right back here on Monday breaking down Florida State and Duke. And hopefully the Seminoles win. Mike and Mike's up next here on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.